At the imperial palace of the Great Kayan dynasty in the capital city of the parallel world, it was a tranquil morning. The former emperor, Tu Kaienjun, died in battle, and his fourth son, Tu Yi, ascended to the throne. However, Tu Yi wasn't the designated heir appointed by Tu Kaienjun in his lifetime because he was a complete wastrel, indulging in debauchery and incompetence, but he inherited the throne due to the support of corrupt officials. Tu Yi was confused when he heard those things. He seemed surprised to hear his name being called a useless emperor. Tu Yi was distressed as he wondered if he was the one being talked about. He recalled that not long ago, he, as a modern person, was watching dance videos while discussing things on a certain forum. Someone asked on the forum which dynasty they would want to travel to if they could go back in time, and he gave his laptop the middle finger when he read that question, and he exclaimed that it was ridiculous. Tu Yi was on fire, and he typed on his keyboard like a maniac. He asked the person what was wrong with them, arguing that going back to ancient times meant risking all sorts of deaths, and that he might not even end up becoming an emperor with 3,000 concubines, so being born in their era is the best, so he should be grateful, and he posted his answer. Back to his current situation, Tu Yi could not believe that they couldn't handle him, asserting that time travel is ridiculous, so they threw him into that ghostly Kayan dynasty and gave him a crappy setup. Suddenly, his bracelet notified him that the national downfall system was activated. The system greeted Tu Yi as the host and informed him that he was his AI assistant, Downfall Bracelet, and he could call him Downy. Tu Yi was petrified as he wondered what the hell that downfall system was, and he inquired if they were messing with him. Downy explained that the system was generated from Tu Yi's desires, so in simple terms, as long as he brought about the downfall of the Kayan dynasty, he could return to reality, and he wished him good luck and assured that he would assist him with all his might. When Tu Yi heard that bringing about the downfall of the Kayan dynasty could bring him back to reality, he stared intensely at Downy as he remarked that he had never heard of such a bizarre time travel setup. And when the girl beside him noticed his reaction, she wondered why he, the useless Prince Tu Yi, was suddenly zoning out. The girl mentioned that Tu Yi used to give her creepy smiles whenever he saw her, but something felt different that day. She was startled when Tu Yi suddenly looked at her. Tu Yi seemed to have seen something horrifying, and as he wondered what the heck it was, Downy revealed that the girl, Zhao Shu, was Zhao Zhuo's adopted daughter, who was given to Tu Yi as a concubine to better monitor and control him. He could see Zhao Shu's information and data, and he questioned why he could see those, just like playing a game, to which Downy explained that it was a warm-hearted auxiliary function bestowed upon him by Big Downfall, so whenever it concerned key figures related to the downfall target, he could access their information and data at any time to know them inside and out and win 100 battles. On the other hand, Zhao Shu was also astonished, and she asked herself if that was just her imagination. Zhao Shu noted that in an instant, when Tu Yi gazed at her, it seemed like a spark flashed in his eyes. Tu Yi admitted that Zhao Shu was a beautiful lady who was arranged by Zhao Zhuo to monitor him, and she was quite charming. While on the other hand, Zhao Shu thought that her proud acting skills seemed to have been seen through by Tu Yi with just one glance. Tu Yi looked troubled as he continued to look at Zhao Shu. Suddenly, a man called Tu Yi and commented that he had seemed distracted for a while, and asked him if there was something on his mind. Seeing the two men in front of him, Tu Yi wondered if they were the corrupt officials mentioned in the opening narration, and if he could see their information too. Looking at the man who just talked to Tu Yi, Downy identified that it was Lai Tianyuan, the right prime minister of the Kayan dynasty and the plastic brother of Zhao Zhuo, who sees Tu Yi as a controllable puppet and is attempting to crown him as emperor. Looking at the other man who was busy eating, Downy pointed out that it was Zhao Zhuo, the left prime minister of the Kayan dynasty and the plastic brother of Lai Tianyuan, who also sees Tu Yi as a controllable puppet and is attempting to crown him as emperor. Tu Yi's expression was grim when he saw their information, thinking that Lai Tianyuan's political power and Machiavellianism values are off the charts while Zhao Zhuo's values are slightly lower. But he has no weaknesses, like a hexagonal warrior, and as Zhao Shu saw Tu Yi's expression, she remarked that it was the first time he had shown such a cold gaze, and it was terrifying yet strangely exhilarating. Suddenly, Zhao Zhuo called Lai Tianyuan. Zhao Zhuo remarked that Tu Yi is probably worried that the throne he was about to grab might not be stable, but Tu Yi calmly responded that it was not the case at all because he wished the throne would be unstable sooner, and the country would fall sooner. And Zhao Shu noted that even in the face of insults from her adoptive father, Tu Yi remained calm, so she wondered when he became so inscrutable. Standing from his seat, Zhao Zhuo stated that, after all, the late emperor's will before his death was for Tu Su, who was leading troops outside, to ascend the throne. Tu Yi realized that the previous emperor's designated heir was called Tu Su, who seemed to be currently outside the capital, leading troops. As Zhao Zhuo said that they were currently going against the late emperor's will and preparing to support Tu Yi's ascension to the throne, Tu Yi remarked that it was no wonder that those two prime ministers were brazenly staying in the capital. While smacking the coffin, Zhao Zhuo commented that although Tu Kaiyanjun might not just pop open the coffin and kill them, the same can't be said for Tu Su. Zhao Zhuo approached Tu Yi and mentioned that, after all, the news of the late emperor's death hasn't spread yet. He was sinister when he suggested to Tu Yi that they have the imperial seal in their hands at the moment, so maybe it was better to strike first and issue a decree. Zhao Zhuo suggested that Tu Yi should allow Tu Su to accompany the late emperor in death. Tu Yi considered that if he followed their plan and issued the decree to kill Tu Su, he would secure the throne, but it wouldn't help achieve the goal of destroying the country quickly. He knew that he would be like a puppet at their mercy, and he lamented that the late emperor's body was still warm. Yet his two most trusted ministers have already defied his last wishes, conspiring to crown a useless prince as emperor to control the realm. Tu Yi complained that he couldn't watch dramas there. There were no cute girls to watch, and he was just being manipulated by those two old coins. He was appalled, as he remarked that he didn't want to live like that for another second. Tu Yi was troubled as he wondered what he should do. Suddenly, his attention was focused on the imperial seal. Tu Yi suddenly grabbed the imperial seal, which surprised Zhao Zhuo, and he declared that he should just take them down. Zhao Zhuo was horrified, and he questioned Tu Yi about what he was doing. Raising the imperial seal away from him, Zhao Zhuo demanded to know what Tu Yi meant by doing such a thing, while Tu Yi explained that if he died, it would be as if the Kaiyan dynasty was finished and it was perfect, so he urged Zhao Zhuo in his mind to take him down. Tu Yi declared that since he is the emperor, he will keep the imperial seal from that day forward, and who he will kill or spare will be up to him. Meanwhile, Zhao Shu was wondering if Tu Yi was originally a man who dared to confront Zhao Zhuo like that, and she blushed when she heard his domineering lines. As Tu Yi asked who was in favor and who was against what he stated, Zhao Shu observed his facial expression and his tense body language, and she remarked that he was a bold man. Zhao Shu's face turned red as she continued to observe Tu Yi. As she watched how Tu Yi taunted Zhao Zhuo, Zhao Shu commented that Tu Yi's previous behavior was all an act. Zhao Shu noted that with the imperial seal in Tu Yi's hands, he was showing his true self, while Zhao Zhuo must be fuming. Enraged, Zhao Zhuo exclaimed that Tu Yi was getting arrogant before even ascending to the throne, and that if he had the power to lift him up, he would have the power to bring him down. Tu Yi continued to taunt Zhao Zhuo and challenged that he should come on to hurry up and kill him, and he remarked that Zhao Zhuo was a man with a martial prowess value of 77, so he shouldn't disappoint him. Zhao Zhuo charged at Tu Yi and shouted that he should watch him choke him to death, while Zhao Shu was trying to stop him, urging that he should calm down. Suddenly, Lai Tianyuan chimed in, and he interjected that the both of them should stop arguing as they all have the same goal, and suggested that they calm down first. Tu Yi was disappointed when he saw that Lai Tianyuan was quite composed, but he smirked as he remarked that it looked like they needed to add some fuel to the fire. As Lai Tianyuan was about to suggest something, Tu Yi dropped the imperial seal in his hand. Lai Tianyuan's expression turned grim as the imperial seal crashed on the ground, while Tu Yi lightheartedly muttered oops, and Zhao Zhuo was horrified. Tu Yi nonchalantly replied that it was his bad that it slipped, but he knew that the imperial seal symbolized the destiny and authority of the Kaiyan dynasty, and it was the emperor's command to the countries and a token of ruling the world. Tu Kaiyanjun called himself Kaiyan Yuan Emperor, implying that the Kaiyan dynasty could last for generations. Tu Yi was aware that breaking the imperial seal was a capital offense, so he didn't believe Lai Tianyuan could endure a provocation to that extent. Looking at Lai Tianyuan's terrifying expression, Tu Yi wondered if he was going to kill him at that moment and let him accomplish the task of destroying the country. Meanwhile, Zhao Zhuo was mad at Tu Yi that he was pointing at him aggressively, and he was lost for words. As Zhao Zhuo was about to continue scolding Tu Yi, someone interjected and stopped him. It was Lai Tianyuan, and he explained that their majesty was just joking and that the whole world belongs to Tu Yi, let alone a piece of jade. Tu Yi was disappointed again when Lai Tianyuan explained that it was not a big deal if it was broken. Lai Tianyuan advised Tu Yi that it was getting late, so he should rest early as they could discuss other matters another day. Lai Tianyuan and Zhao Zhuo both walked away, and Tu Yi tried to stop them. Tu Yi asked them if the emperor and common people weren't equal under the law and if they were not going to kill him. A few moments later, in a different building, Zhao Zhuo was with Lai Tianyuan, and he suggested that they must find a way to get rid of Tu Yi. Lai Tianyuan inquired Zhao Zhuo if he knew the consequences of eliminating Tu Yi, and Zhao Zhuo questioned him about what consequences there could be and called him a spineless fool for still calling the kid Tu Yi, Your Majesty. But Lai Tianyuan faced Zhao Zhuo and called him foolish. Lai Tianyuan asked Zhao Zhuo to guess if they, as the late emperor's trusted ministers, would be the first target of Tu Su's investigation and punishment if Prince Tu Yi died in the capital under suspicious circumstances while Prince Tu Su was leading troops outside. Zhao Zhuo was in disbelief when Lai Tianyuan explained that Tuyi breaking the imperial seal meant that they had lost a bargaining chip against Tu Su, so they could only rely on Tuyi to ascend to the throne, so they couldn't get rid of him at the moment. Zhao Zhuo paused for a moment and asked Lai Tianyuan if he was suggesting that Tuyi deliberately broke the imperial seal to prevent him from killing Tu Su, and Lai Tianyuan confirmed. Lai Tianyuan clarified that originally Tu Su was a stumbling block on Tuyi's path to the throne, but since Tuyi's ascension was a certainty, he had to reconsider his relationship with Tu Su. He added that on the continent of the Otherworld, with various countries vying for dominance and countless lives suffering, the Kayan dynasty ultimately pacified the region and unified the northern continent. So the presence of Tu Su, who holds heavy military power, makes them tread carefully in the court, unable to overshadow Tuyi too much. Lai Tianyuan warned that if they press Tuyi too hard, he might allow Tu Su to enter the capital and ruin their plans, and they can't dare to risk that. He also suggested that Tuyi might even use triangular relationships to control them. Zhao Zhuo, who seemed doubtful, asked Lai Tianyuan if he was overthinking it and if Tuyi had the brains to calculate that far. Lai Tianyuan inquired Zhao Zhuo if he knew whose words those were when Tuyi mentioned the emperor and common people being equal under the law, and stated that those were the words of the chief minister of the Kayan dynasty, Wai Xingluo, 100 years ago. He recounted that back then, Minister Wai Xingluo was greatly favored by the Kayan king, wielding immense power and was virtually above everyone else, but because he lost the Kayan king's trust, he was sentenced to death by dismemberment. They imagined how Tuyi was grinning sinisterly, and they were just like helpless puppets in his hands. Zhao Zhuo declared that he is not Wai Xingluo and he will never bow to Tuyi because all he relies on is Tu Su's military strength. And since Tuyi hasn't issued any orders, he would send someone to kill Tu Su himself and pin it all on Tuyi, as the results would be the same. Lai Tianyuan said nothing as he was deep in his thoughts. His eyes glistened as he remarked that their previous support for Tuyi was because he was the easiest to control among the late emperor's many sons, but currently it seems different. Lai Tianyuan depicted an image of Tuyi leading many people. He began laughing sinisterly. Lai Tianyuan's expression was evil as he remarked that the late emperor's descendants were truly amusing. On the other hand, Tuyi was peacefully sleeping in his bed. Suddenly, he opened his bloodshot eyes and groaned that it was boring. Tuyi complained that there was bad food, boring games, he had to read memorials for which he didn't even recognize a single character, and there was nothing good here or there, so it was a boring era. He looked like he was going crazy, and he whined that without phones or computers, he was going to die. Suddenly, he noticed someone standing in the corner of the room. Tuyi looked baffled when he saw Zhao Shu standing there. Zhao Shu blushed and murmured that she needed to attend to him in the bedchamber. Tuyi's face was blank for a moment. He suddenly turned red and started drooling as he exclaimed that he would take back what he stated. It was a peaceful morning, and the flowers were blooming outside. In the bedroom, Tuyi was pleased as he laid with Zhao Shu in bed, and he confessed that he absolutely couldn't control it. Tuyi stood up and got dressed, and he explained that to finish his mission, he would have to trouble Zhao Shu. Suddenly, he noticed that Zhao Shu was wearing a hairpin. Imagining a scene from ancient times where a hairpin was used as a weapon, Zhao Shu remarked that no one would have believed that it could become a key tool for him to complete the task of destroying the country and returning to the modern world that day. Tuyi was smiling ominously as he kept glancing at Zhao Shu. He called Zhao Shu. Zhao Shu was horrified when Tuyi questioned him if he was actually a spy sent by Zhao Zhuo to his side. She was surprised that she was exposed, but she still insisted that it was impossible. Zhao Shu feigned ignorance and inquired what Tuyi was talking about because she didn't understand. Tuyi reassured Zhao Shu that she shouldn't worry because he doesn't care about her and Zhao Zhuo's private dealings. He chugged the drink in his hand. Tuyi asked Zhao Shu if Zhao Zhuo placed her by his side just to monitor and control him, and how it felt to be exposed on the spot. Zhao Shu was horrified when Tuyi mentioned that he really enjoyed that game he was playing with Zhao Zhuo. Otherwise, being an emperor would be too boring, and she was surprised that Zhao Zhuo deliberately sending her to him was just a game for Tuyi. She gripped the sheets tighter as she wondered if Tuyi's coming clean to her meant that he was admitting that he was tired of the game. As he chugged on his drink again, Tuyi yawned and observed that the wine was a bit intoxicating. Tuyi slumped on the table, and he warned Zhao Shu that she shouldn't claim that he didn't give him a chance, so she should go ahead and make her move. Zhao Shu acknowledged that her identity was exposed and that she had lost her value to Zhao Zhuo too. She declared that there was only one way to redeem herself. Zhao Shu tiptoed as she approached Tuyi from behind. Meanwhile, Tuyi was pretending to snore. Suddenly, Tuyi was startled when Downey announced that the National Downfall System upgrade was complete and he would continue to serve him as always. And Tuyi demanded to know what was with the system upgrade and argued that he was about to complete the mission, and return, so his upgrade was meaningless. But Downey explained that to make Tuyi's mission goals clearer, the upgrade adds a national power points system, which integrates political, economic, military, cultural, and other indicators of Kaion's national strength to derive national power points, which is why, as long as Tuyi lowers the national power points below 0, the mission of the downfall of the country is considered complete, and the initial national power points are 1,000. When he realized something, Tuyi asked Downey telepathically that even if he were killed at that moment, as long as the national power points weren't cleared, it was still considered a mission failure, and Downey replied that with his current value, even if he died, it wouldn't lead to clearing the points. Seeing Zhao Shu, who was ready to stab him from behind, Tuyi panicked, and he cursed in his mind as he demanded to know why Downey hadn't mentioned it earlier, and why his life was worthless. On the other hand, Zhao Shu thought that Tuyi was probably testing her again. But she had no way out. She plunged her hairpin towards Tuyi, and she muttered that she could only take a gamble. But Tuyi suddenly stopped her by grabbing her hand, and tears immediately welled on the corners of Zhao Shu's eyes. She sobbed that sure enough, she had been played by Tuyi's acting skills again, while Tuyi commented that that was close, and he almost died there meaninglessly. Zhao Shu looked desperate, and she pulled her hand from Tuyi's grasp. She grabbed Tuyi and pleaded that she still had a chance, so she would stab. But Zhao Shu suddenly tripped. She was flustered as she lost her balance. Tuyi just watched as Zhao Shu clumsily fell to the floor. Zhao Shu was helpless while she was crying, and Tuyi mocked that. Being a warrior with only a martial prowess value of 44, Zhao Shu trying to kill after a failed tower dive was a bit overconfident. Tuyi took the hairpin from Zhao Shu's hand, and he sneered that she was too eager as she got triggered by just a few words from him. He was menacing as he advised that it wasn't how a qualified spy behaves. Zhao Shu cried her heart out as she lamented that the assassination had failed, so she wondered if she was going to die. A few moments later, Zhao Shu suddenly woke up, and she wondered where she was because she was supposed to be with Tuyi. She was startled when someone appeared behind her and questioned her if she had taken care of the task they assigned to her. It was Zhao Zhuo, and Zhao Shu was terrified as she addressed him as her adoptive father. Zhao Zhuo was terrified, and he threatened that if Zhao Shu can't handle such a small matter, he will have to punish her. Zhao Shu was helpless, and all she could do was scream. Suddenly, Zhao Shu woke up beside Tuyi, and she was still screaming. Tuyi asked her if she was having a nightmare. Zhao Shu was anxious, and she inquired if Tuyi was not going to kill her. Tuyi stretched his hands out and replied that it was just a game, so not only was he not going to kill her, he would pretend to be unaware and let her pass on the message. He added that, after all, that is what makes the game interesting. Tuyi was writing vigorously as he remarked that, at that moment, he was about to draft a very interesting imperial decree. Watching Tuyi, Zhao Shu noted that Tuyi was showing a terrifying kind of expression. Tuyi was gritting his teeth, and his eyes were menacing, and Zhao Shu observed that he must be preparing to take action against Zhao Shu again. Unbeknownst to Zhao Shu, Tuyi was cursing in his mind and muttered that writing with a brush was difficult. Tuyi exhaled deeply, and Zhao Shu was surprised that he had finished writing, thinking that it was fast. Suddenly, the exhausted Tuyi asked Zhao Shu if she could help him write, and she was surprised. Zhao Shu was horrified while Tuyi ushered her towards the table, and she wondered why it turned out like that. She was reluctantly refusing Tuyi, and she mentioned that she didn't know what decree he wanted to draft. Tuyi declared that she should just write that all descendants of the Tu family, including Tu Su, are to be stripped of the Tu surname and demoted to commoners. Zhao Shu was nervous as she questioned Tuyi's abolition of his own family's kin. She inquired if she may ask why he wanted her, a servant, to draft such a decree. Tuyi was grinning as he explained that he had asked the system before if weakening the influence of the Tu family was the simplest way to deduct points, and demoting the descendants of the Tu family to commoners not only deducted a large number of points but also helped portray him as a ruthless tyrant to the outside world, so it was simply perfect. Zhao Shu was terrified when she saw Tuyi's expression, while Tuyi boasted that he, who came up with that method, is truly outstanding in the world of tyrants. Tuyi demanded Zhao Shu to explain why she asked, and he was menacing that Zhao Shu was alarmed, and she quickly lowered her head and admitted that it was her being too talkative, so she requested that he forgive her. Tuyi grinned and added that, of course, it was to increase the difficulty of the game. Zhao Shu was flustered when Tuyi caressed her face and stated that with that decree, he would not only become a lonely man without the support of his family but also bear the reputation of a ruthless tyrant. Tuyi reiterated that he will have Zhao Shu draft the decree and asked her if she will also tell Zhao Zhuo the good news because he will surely be delighted. He offered that Zhao Shu should consider that information as a gift from him to her, and when Zhao Shu heard that, she confessed that she had never received a gift from childhood to adulthood. Tuyi insisted that Zhao Shu shouldn't let him down, while Zhao Shu was wondering why she still felt happy even though she knew Tuyi was deceiving her. A few moments later, at Zhao Zhuo's residence, a lady was knocking on the door. It was Zhao Shu, and as Zhao Zhuo opened the door, he inquired why she was just coming at that moment. As she came inside, Zhao Shu immediately announced that she came at that time to bring important information. Zhao Shu revealed that Tui decreed that all the two families' royals be demoted to commoners. Both Zhao Zhuo and Lai Tianyuan were surprised by that news. Zhao Zhuo commented that Lai Tianyuan just had the intention to establish a new emperor from among the two families' descendants, so obviously Tui was targeting them. Lai Tianyuan queried Zhao Shu on how she obtained such important information, and if it was reliable. Zhao Shu was hesitant when she disclosed that Tui asked her to personally draft that decree. Zhao Zhuo was mad that his eyes became bloodshot, and he hit Zhao Shu on the face while calling her a bastard. He demanded if Zhao Shu had leaked their secrets. Zhao Shu cried as she insisted that she didn't. But Zhao Zhuo accused Zhao Shu of acting and charged her with trying to use Tui to deal with him, or else she couldn't have drafted the decree. Suddenly, someone tapped Zhao Zhuo's shoulders. It was Lai Tianyuan, and he urged Zhao Zhuo to calm down because if Zhao Shu leaked the information, there was no way that the two of them would know about the decree, so it was Tui's scheme to show discord and also to deter them from establishing a new prince. Zhao Zhuo suddenly looked anxious as he looked at Zhao Shu. He quickly apologized for wrongly accusing her earlier and asked if she wouldn't blame him, to which Zhao Shu replied that she dares not. Zhao Zhuo turned to Lai Tianyuan and stated that it seems his plan to establish a new prince has failed. He advised Lai Tianyuan to listen to his plan because he will rally the courtiers and humiliate Tui thoroughly during his first court session to let him know who holds sway in the court. Lai Tianyuan hesitantly responded that he thought something about Zhao Zhuo's plan, but he conceded that Zhao Zhuo should just forget it and do as he pleases. Lai Tianyuan argued that Zhao Zhuo wasn't someone who could make big decisions, so he should also have his own plans. On the other hand, Tui was reading a scroll, and he mentioned that the decree was ready, and he was just waiting for the right time to announce it, but it was still far from clearing the points to zero. Tui contemplated that careful consideration should still yield many methods to deduct national power points. He looked pleased as he recalled that in history, a tyrant who caused the downfall of a country, apart from trusted treacherous ministers, also ignored state affairs, forcibly took women from the populace, and recruited concubines from everywhere. Tui concluded that it was how it would be done, as the late emperor's body hasn't even gone cold, and he would decree to forcibly take the female relatives of all the courtiers into the palace to serve, which will definitely make them feel chilled. The eunuch serving Tui looked horrified when Tui talked to himself with a sinister expression on his face, and he remarked that in that way, not only could he deduct a large number of points, but he could also benefit himself, so it was no wonder he came up with such a brilliant scheme. Tui turned to the eunuch and stated that he wanted to summon Zhao Zhuo and Lai Tianyuan, so he should have them come to the study immediately, to which the eunuch quickly replied yes. A few moments later, Zhao Zhuo and Lai Tianyuan walked into the study. Tui greeted the ministers with a smile on his face, and as he mentioned that they shouldn't stand on ceremony, he requested that they sit down and feel at home. Zhao Zhuo scoffed while Lai Tianyuan politely thanked Tui. As soon as they got seated, Zhao Zhuo suggested that since Tui had ascended the throne, he should familiarize himself with the courtiers' affairs the next day. Zhao Zhuo grinned sinisterly as he added that he would go and discuss with the ministers of the Zhao faction in the court later, and they would surely unite to prevent Tui from stepping down tomorrow. Meanwhile, Tui had the same sinister smile as he wondered if diligent governance wasn't a bonus and remarked that it would be foolish of him to hold court right after ascending the throne. Tui claimed that holding court is such a hassle because he lacked experience as a newly crowned emperor. He explained that he would be trusting the two ministers to handle court affairs. Lai Tianyuan observed that indeed, Tui rejected Zhao Zhuo's request to hold court. He furrowed his brow as he pointed out that not only did Tui guess that Zhao Zhuo wanted to suppress him in the court, but he also brought up the reason of trusting his ministers, making it irrefutable. Observing Tui, Lai Tianyuan stated that Zhao Zhuo's shallow schemes were completely inadequate in front of him. On the other hand, Tui announced that it was time to throw out his plan to recruit concubines and deduct points. He cleared his throat and proposed that they should not talk about court affairs for the time being because the reason he called the two ministers that day was to discuss something. Tui blushed as he revealed that since he was the emperor, having only Zhao Shu in the harem was rather embarrassing, so he had decided to gather beautiful women and expand the harem. Zhao Zhuo was horrified, and he exclaimed that the late emperor's body hadn't even gotten cold, yet Tui was already thinking from his lower body and that he had never seen such shamelessness. Meanwhile, Lai Tianyuan was astonished, as he noted that Tui specifically summoned them for an audience to discuss matters unrelated to state affairs, and he wondered what was with the harem recruitment. Tui looked excited as he insisted that the matter needed to be done quickly, and he added that he should clear his national power points sooner rather than later. Both Zhao Zhuo and Lai Tianyuan were speechless when they heard what Tui proclaimed. Zhao Zhuo remarked that he supported Tuyi's idea of gathering beauties from all over the world, but he was concerned about doing it hastily. Tuyi cut Zhao Zhuo off and affirmed that he understood that they couldn't gather beauties from all over the world in a hurry, so they should start by searching in the capital. Zhao Zhuo was astonished when he heard what Tuyi suggested, and he wondered if it was really necessary to be so impatient. On the other hand, Lai Tianyuan thought to himself that he shouldn't be misled by Tuyi's pretext of gathering beauties because he just mentioned the capital, so that was probably the focus. Tuyi announced that he had come up with the most time-saving and effortless method. He looked sinister as he declared that they should start by selecting from the female relatives of the ministers in court. Lai Tianyuan was horrified when he heard what Tuyi proposed. A few moments later, the ministers came out of the study, and as they walked down the stairs, Zhao Zhuo grumbled that Tuyi ignored state affairs and also wanted to expand the harem, which was the rhythm of a true tyrant. Zhao Zhuo added that Tuyi was digging his own grave by putting himself in the emperor's position, which would save them a lot of effort. But he was startled when Lai Tianyuan suddenly yelled at him and shouted that it was enough. Lai Tianyuan looked pissed, and he warned that if Zhao Zhuo continued to underestimate Tuyi like that, what awaited them was the fate of having their entire families executed. Zhao Zhuo was taken aback and was speechless at Lai Tianyuan's actions. Lai Tianyuan quickly realized what he had done, and he immediately looked away to regain his composure. He apologized to Zhao Zhuo because he had lost his composure earlier, but he explained that Tuyi's actions were all part of a cunning strategy, and when Zhao Zhuo heard that it was a strategy, he admitted that he didn't see it. Lai Tianyuan pointed out that Tuyi just foiled Zhao Zhuo's plan to embarrass him in court, showing that he knew their intentions inside out. Zhao Zhuo argued that they were summoned to the palace right after they made that plan, so there was no chance of leaking information. Lai Tianyuan noted that it showed Tuyi anticipated it in advance, which was what made it so terrifying. And not only that, besides not holding court, Tuyi also wanted to expand the harem, and that series of actions may seem indulgent and misleading, but they were aimed at them, forming a cohesive chain of strategies. The two ministers felt like there was an ominous, dark aura oozing from the palace gates as they looked at it. Zhao Zhuo asked Lai Tianyuan what the cohesive chain of strategies meant. Lai Tianyuan explained that Tuyi had the confidence not to hold court because he believed that he could still control state affairs without doing so. His face looked horrified as he explained that by taking the female relatives of the courtiers into the harem, Tuyi could directly win over ministers through marriage and undermine their influence in the court. Understanding the severity of the situation, Zhao Zhuo got nervous, and he inquired what they should do. Lai Tianyuan grinned as he asked what else they could do and noted that Tuyi was currently the emperor, and he wanted to expand the two-family bloodline and the harem naturally. He turned to face Zhao Zhuo, and while thinking of two specific ladies, Lai Tianyuan smiled sinisterly, and he added that they, as Tuyi's subjects, naturally have to fulfill his wishes. A few days later, in the palace side hall, Lai Tianyuan went to talk to Tuyi, and he reported that as per Tuyi's orders, all the descendants of the two clan had been demoted to commoners in the past few days, except for the eldest prince, Tu Su, because he was stationed outside, so the decree hadn't reached him yet. But Tuyi replied that those were not important, so they would talk about those later. He turned red as he inquired how the selection of the harem he ordered had gone. Lai Tianyuan explained that they hadn't failed Tuyi's command, but due to the limited time, he requested that he forgive them. He clapped his hands to call for the ladies and announced that they should come out and let Tuyi have a look. Tuyi looked so excited as he looked forward to seeing the ladies. He was surprised when he saw a lot of beautiful ladies lined up in front of him. Tuyi's eyes immediately twinkled, and he started drooling as he wondered if it was paradise, and when Lai Tianyuan saw that, he looked at Tuyi with disappointment in his eyes. The ladies paid their respects to Tuyi, and Tuyi cleared his throat and instructed that they may rise. Still drooling, Tuyi approached Lai Tianyuan and asked him if there were any who liked to indulge among the concubines he recruited at that time. Lai Tianyuan responded that he wasn't quite sure what Tuyi meant by indulge. Tuyi frowned as he accused Lai Tianyuan of pretending to be innocent and wondered if Lai Tianyuan couldn't understand its context from the conversation as a man, even if he hadn't heard of indulgence before. Lai Tianyuan was wondering if Tuyi was getting suspicious. Lai Tianyuan stated that most of the concubines brought into the palace that time were from influential noble families, which seemed reasonable on the surface and didn't raise any issues, except for two women. It was Fan Taozhu and Jude Shah. Lai Tianyuan recalled that over a decade ago, during the reign of Emperor Qian of the Great Qian Dynasty, the two prominent families, the Fan family and the Juge family, offended the late emperor and were wiped out. He felt a sudden impulse and secretly saved those two young girls while carrying out the execution. Lai Tianyuan explained that for the past decade or so, he had kept their identities hidden and raised them by his side. He added that unexpectedly, both of the ladies inherited the talents of their predecessors and became important pawns in his hands. One night, Lai Tianyuan called for Fan Taozhu and Jude Sha. As the two ladies bowed before him, Lai Tianyuan revealed that the Kaiyan Emperor, Tu Kaiyanjun, who exterminated their entire family, had already died. The two ladies were horrified when they heard the news, and as Lai Tianyuan stated that the two of them couldn't take revenge personally, he asked them if they harbored any resentment. Lai Tianyuan continued that there was an opportunity for the two clans' downfall in front of them, but it came with great risks because the new emperor, Tu Yi, was not only cunning but also depraved and cruel, even more terrifying than Tu Kaiyanjun, that they could say it was a life-threatening situation. Fan Taozhu immediately declared that she was willing to die 1,000 times for revenge, and Jude Sha announced that she had long been prepared to sacrifice herself. Lai Tianyuan explained that it was a perfect opportunity to place both of the ladies by Tu Yi's side under the guise of selecting concubines, guaranteeing that no one would suspect a thing. Back in the present, Tu Yi's eyes were twinkling as he scoped the ladies, and he noticed two misses. Tu Yi was looking at Fan Taozhu and Jude Sha. Lai Tianyuan, who was observing Tu Yi, was astonished, and he wondered if Tu Yi noticed. Tu Yi saw Jude Sha's information and attributes using Downey, and he learned that she was the granddaughter of the prominent scholar Jude Tiangan during the reign of Tu Kaiyanjun, and she was the sole survivor of the Jude family after they were exterminated, as she was adopted by Lai Tianyuan, and she approached him to seek revenge and destroy the country. On the other hand, Tu Yi also saw Fan Taozhu's information and attributes the same way, and he learned that she was the granddaughter of the wealthy merchant Fan Zuyan during the reign of Tu Kaiyanjun, and she was the sole survivor of the Fan family after they were exterminated as she was adopted by Lai Tianyuan, and she also approached him to seek revenge and destroy the country. Tu Yi smiled at Lai Tianyuan as he remarked that those two misses were originally planted by Lai Tianyuan as undercover agents, and it was very good because those snake-like and scorpion-like beauties who stirred up trouble in the harem were the standard configuration of a tyrant who leads a country to ruin. He approached the two ladies with a sleazy smile on his face, and as he commented that both of them were quite exceptional, he inquired what their names were. Fan Taozhu confidently stated her name to Tu Yi while Jude Sha was nervous, and she stuttered. Tu Yi approached Jude Sha and observed that she seemed a bit nervous. Lai Tianyuan got extremely nervous, and he was alarmed as he explained that Jude Sha is introverted, so under Tu Yi's imposing aura, she might reveal herself. Tu Yi lightly grabbed Jude Sha's chin and reassured her that she shouldn't be afraid because he's actually very approachable. He was grinning as he stared at Jude Sha's face. Suddenly, Jude Sha cried that she couldn't take it anymore, and tears flowed out of her eyes while saliva came out of her mouth, which surprised Tu Yi. It was unknown to others and had not been recorded in the system's hidden attributes that, in a state of emotional tension, being touched by the opposite sex in sensitive areas, including but not limited to the chin, would cause Jude Sha to faint due to embarrassment. Fan Taozhu was worried, while Tu Yi was horrified by what happened. Meanwhile, Lai Tianyuan was just as horrified as Tu Yi. Tu Yi lamented that it was supposed to be a scene of favor to win Lai Tianyuan's heart with it. Seeing the awful state Jude Sha was in, Tu Yi muttered that he didn't expect her tolerance to be so low, and she messed up the performance. Tu Yi speculated that Lai Tianyuan would be afraid of Jude Sha's identity being exposed and would surely find an excuse to replace her. Suddenly, someone knelt aggressively. It was Lai Tianyuan, and he confessed that he neglected his duty and made an improper selection, causing Jude Sha to behave improperly in front of Tu Yi, so he deserved to die, and he would take care of Jude Sha immediately. Tu Yi immediately dismissed it, and he stated that the only plan at the moment was to forcefully continue with the act. While Tu Yi carried Jude Sha in his arms and remarked that he liked that type that couldn't resist with just a little teasing, so the people Lai Tianyuan selected had truly captured his heart. Fan Taozhu glared at him, and she muttered that the tyrant really was a pervert. Lai Tianyuan wiped the sweat off his face, and he thanked Tu Yi. Tu Yi inquired if it was decided that Jude Sha would serve him in bed that night while Fan Taozhu continued to glare at him, and she vowed that the tyrant would pay for those things sooner or later. Fan Taozhu was flustered and puzzled when Tu Yi suddenly turned to look at her inquisitively. Tu Yi was wondering why Fan Taozhu was looking at him with such dissatisfaction. He grinned evilly, and as his face turned red, he teased Fan Taozhu and asked if she also wanted to serve him in bed. Tu Yi suggested that they play three-person landlords that night instead, and Fan Taozhu was surprised. It was still in the middle of the day, but Tu Yi was already in his bedchamber with Fan Taozhu and Jude Sha. As he got inside the curtains, Tu Yi looked so proud as he announced that among the beauties in the palace, those two young ladies were indeed the most outstanding. Meanwhile, Jude Sha and Fan Taozhu observed Tu Yi while they lay on his bed. Tu Yi declared that the system showed that the ladies approached him to destroy the country, which could be well utilized. He remembered Lai Tianyuan, and he explained that after all, those two ladies were secretly adopted by Lai Tianyuan and especially sent to him, so they must have extraordinary qualities. Tui lamented that it was a pity that the system only displays basic information and ability indexes, so he was not quite sure what special skills those ladies have for destroying the country. On the other hand, Fan Taoju continued to observe Tui, and she was wondering what the tyrant was thinking. Fan Taoju and Jude Shaw looked at each other and stated that they clearly had the resolve to sacrifice themselves. They imagined how Tui would torture them, and they predicted that he would use all sorts of methods to humiliate them. They imagined that Tui would use a whip on them. He hit Jude Shaw with the whip to force them to submit to his tyranny. Fan Taoju imagined that she would be burned by the candle's melting wax. Jude Shaw and Fan Taoju looked at Tui intently as they anticipated what their fate would be. Tui looked so menacing while he was deep in his thoughts, and he gazed intently at them. Fan Taoju commented that doing nothing made Tui appear even scarier, and she recalled that when Lai Tianyuan brought them in, he specifically reminded them of something. She recalled how Lai Tianyuan informed them that they don't need to worry about their identities because he had prepared disguises to ensure that Tui couldn't uncover their backgrounds. But Tui is cunning, and despite being lustful, he is not easily swayed by beauty. Lai Tianyuan revealed that, moreover, Zhao Zhuo had already given Tui Zhao Shu, who is not only their ally but also their competitor. Jude Shaw and Fan Taoju both looked grim as they listened intently to Lai Tianyuan's reminders. Lai Tianyuan approached them and stated that if they wanted to gain Tui's trust, they must show extra value beyond just beauty. He smiled at the ladies and remarked that he believed they knew how to demonstrate their additional value. Jude Shaw and Fan Taoju were suddenly snapped back into reality when Tui asked them what the two of them were thinking about, that they were so lost in thought. Tui inquired that he had just asked them a question and asked them if they had any special talents or skills. Fan Taoju and Jude Shaw looked at Tui, and they both acknowledged that it was as expected. Jude Shaw immediately responded and stated that she was skilled in fortune-telling, stargazing, and handwriting analysis. She also listed that she was skilled in talismans, feng shui, health preservation, medicine, and alchemy, and Tui wondered if it was the strength of the daughters of a great alchemist and scholar. Jude Shaw bashfully added that she also had skills in the bedroom, but Tui retorted that with her temperament, fainting from just a touch, she still dared to claim she had bedroom skills. Tui turned to Fan Taoju and asked about her, and Fan Taoju noted that, judging by the tyrant's expression, he didn't seem quite satisfied with Jude Shaw's answer. Fan Taoju recalled that she came from a merchant family. She explained that she had been involved in various business dealings since she was young, accompanying her grandfather. Fan Taoju mentioned that with exposure to such environments, she was not only skilled in financial calculations, but also in understanding human nature. But Fan Taoju admitted that, however, her grandfather's experiences taught her that possessing both of those skills could easily arouse suspicion from those in power. Back into the present, Fan Taoju observed that the premise of revenge is self-preservation, so while showcasing one's value, one must present themselves as harmless. Fan Taoju insisted that as a weak woman, she didn't have any special talents or skills, and she clarified that she absolutely could not mention being good at financial calculations or understanding human nature. She stated that even though she came from a noble family, both her parents were deceased, and the only thing she had to offer was the vast wealth passed down from her family, and she noted that there was nothing better than the image of a helpless, wealthy young woman with no family. But Tui was thinking of something else, and he was astonished as he wondered if Fan Taoju was the alternate universe version of Batman because her parents were deceased yet wealthy. Tui thought about it and concluded that both of the ladies could contribute to the cause of destroying the country. He declared that as the ruler of a nation, there was no way he could be interested in Fan Taoju's wealth. Tui suggested that, on the contrary, he asked Fan Taoju if she would be willing to manage the national treasury for him, and Fan Taoju acted bashful when Tui proposed that. But she was horrified when the details finally sank in and she realized what Tui actually proposed. Unbeknownst to her, Tui observed that Fan Taoju came from a profit-oriented merchant family, adept at embezzlement and financial fraud, so emptying the national treasury and causing economic collapse could be entrusted to her. Tui turned to Jude Shaw and declared that as for her, who was from the family of scholars, historically, tyrants always had a penchant for those obsessed with cultivating immortality, and since Jude Shaw was talented, he would appoint her as the female national teacher, and she would also oversee the royal hospital and be responsible for his longevity through alchemy. Jude Shaw was also horrified when she heard what Tui declared. On the other hand, Tui was imagining how Zhuge Xia would concoct a poison while she would sweetly inform him that it was medicine time, and he entrusted the task of depleting his body to Zhuge Xia. Tui remembered something, and he added that he almost forgot something important and that Zhuge Xia was already the female national teacher. Zhuge Xia was alarmed and confused as she anticipated what Tui was about to announce. Tui instructed that when Zhuge Xia would see him in the future, she should wear her Taoist robe, and as he imagined it, he exclaimed that cosplay is great. Zhuge Xia was extremely horrified when she heard what Tui proposed. Meanwhile, Tui was having a nosebleed imagining things, and he suggested that since they were cosplaying, they should go all out. Imagining his ladies wearing popular costumes, Tui looked so excited, and he declared that having cosplay parties in the palace harem might not be a bad idea. It was already evening, and there was still a light in the study room of the Zhao mansion. Someone was busy writing with their brush. It was Zhao Zhuo, and he smiled evilly as he continued to write. He prepared to stamp what he wrote with a seal and declared that if the brat Tui refuses to accept that imperial edict, he will personally take care of it because a jade seal, as long as he is willing, could be easily replicated. As he rolled his writing into a scroll, Zhao Zhuo remarked that although Tu Su is skilled in leading troops, he is not very bright, making him blindly loyal. So even if the imperial decree orders him to commit suicide immediately, he will unquestionably comply, and as long as Tu Su is eliminated, Tui would be left with no reinforcements and he would be at his mercy. Suddenly, Zhao Zhuo commanded that someone should come in. Zhao Xin, general of the Zhao Zhuo family, entered the room, and as he paid his respects to Zhao Zhuo, he requested that Zhao Zhuo give him his orders. Zhao Zhuo handed a box containing the scroll to Zhao Xin and instructed that he should immediately head to the Lintong city in the northern country and deliver the imperial decree to the commander of the northern garrison, Tu Su. He smiled evilly, and he added that Zhao Xin must witness Tu Su committing suicide with his own eyes and bring back his head because he wanted to send a gift to Tu Yi. Zhao Xin accepted the box and agreed. Meanwhile, someone eavesdropped on the roof of the study room of the Zhao mansion. The person attached a message to a bird, and they whispered that they must inform Lord Zio immediately. The person let go of the bird and let it fly into the night sky. The bird flew so high under the full moon. A few moments later, the soldiers of the Zhao family traveled across a forest. While traveling, they were unaware that there were people waiting for them, hiding above the trees. One of them was a lady who had the bird carrying the message, and she instructed that everyone should prepare. But as she tried to stand up on the tree branch, her foot suddenly slipped. Her companions were both alarmed and confused when they saw that she slipped down. As she fell, the lady yelled and ordered that they should move, and she crashed onto the ground. The lady was Lord Zio, and as one of her men commented that her passive bad luck ability had been triggered again, the other remarked that he was used to it by that time. While still in an awkward position, Lord Zio asked her men what they were standing there for and urged that they should get moving. On the other hand, Zhao Xin rode on his horse when he noticed something and got alarmed. He noticed a rope blocking their way, and he immediately pulled the rein of his horse to stop. Meanwhile, the other soldiers pulled their reins to the side as they tried to avoid colliding with Zhao Xin. Suddenly, explosions were triggered, and it sent both the soldiers and their horses flying. While the smoke from the explosion began to dissipate, one of the soldiers tried to stand up. But something suddenly hit him on his back, and he coughed up blood. The soldiers were alarmed when they saw a lot of dark figures jumping towards them from the tree trunks. While the unknown men descended from the trees, they threw something towards the soldiers. They were blades, and Zhao Xin managed to deflect them with his sword. As the men landed on the ground, they declared that Lord Zio instructed them not to let anyone escape, so they should stop Zhao Xin. Zhao Xin was enraged, and he questioned how dare a mere rebel intercept the imperial edict. The two men were surprised, and they got intimidated by Zhao Xin. Zhao Xin charged towards the men on his horse, and he swung his sword at them, eliminating them. But Zhao Xin was astonished when he noticed the black bird that flew over him. While the black bird's figure covered the moon, a mysterious figure suddenly rode behind Zhao Xin's horse and asked him if he didn't know any better. Zhao Xin was terrified when he saw the mysterious figure. Suddenly, Lord Zio appeared behind Zhao Xin, and while she pointed a dagger to his throat, Zhao Xin seemed to have recognized her as he nervously stammered that it was her. Zhao Xin declared that they were members of the Kun Guard. Suddenly, blood spurted out as Zhao Xin's throat got slashed. While Zhao Xin's body slumped on his horse, one of Lord Zio's men approached her to offer the box that contained the scroll. The man opened the box, and as the scroll got revealed, Lord Zio stated that sure enough, the imperial decree was found on Zhao Xin. Lord Zio explained that the decree ordered Prince Tu Su to commit suicide as issued by the despotic ruler. The man asked Lord Zio if their action that night wasn't overstepping since it was the Emperor's decree. But he got terrified when Lord Zio threw something at him but missed. Lord Zio remarked that it had only been a few days of peace, and they had already forgotten the original intention of their Kun Guard. She explained that when there is light, there is shadow, and only the strong could give rise to the weak, so they, the Kun Guard, operate in darkness to protect the late Emperor, Tu Kaienjun. Lord Xiao stated that they could act ruthlessly and use bloody methods. They also spy on secret meetings to gather information. But she stated that they should not forget that their allegiance was to the late emperor. Lord Xiao looked enraged as she explained that the late emperor appointed Tu Su as the crown prince, and since he had passed away, it was their duty to follow his wishes and support Tu Su. But currently, Tu Yi not only usurped the throne but he also wanted to harm the crown prince. She crushed the scroll using her hand, and it was torn to pieces. The man just silently looked at Lord Xiao as the pieces of paper slowly fell down. Lord Xiao declared that Tu Yi was the enemy that the Kun Guard must eradicate. As she started to disappear, she instructed his men that they should clean up the place thoroughly and not let any information leak. A few moments later, a lot of blackbirds flew around when someone announced that the Crown Prince Tu Su was far in the northern territories, so even if he rushed back to the capital without stopping, it would still take 4 days. The person was by the roof, and they explained that within those 4 days, Tu Yi wouldn't notice the abnormality of the imperial decree. It was Lord Xiao, and she revealed that before that, she wanted to personally kill someone. She looked so enraged and emphasized every syllable as she exclaimed that it was Tu Yi. On the other hand, Tu Yi sneezed. He was playing cards with Zhu Sha and Fan Taozhu, and he asked which beauty was thinking of him again. 5 days later, at Zhao Zhuo's residence, the crescent moon was shining over the residence. Zhao Zhuo was inside, and while he paced back and forth, he stated that it had been 5 days and there had been no news from the fool Zhao Xin. Suddenly, Lai Tianyuan appeared, and he asked Zhao Zhuo what he was waiting for, which startled Zhao Zhuo. Zhao Zhuo nervously replied that he wasn't waiting, and he asked Lai Tianyuan why he was there so late. Lai Tianyuan smiled and explained that he was there to bring Zhao Zhuo some good news and bad news. Zhao Zhuo asked what could possibly be the bad news, and Lai Tianyuan smiled. Lai Tianyuan's expression looked so menacing as he stated that Zhao Zhuo's plan to forge the imperial decree to kill Tu Su failed. Zhao Zhuo was surprised with what he heard. He quickly grabbed Lai Tianyuan by the collar and stated that he was talking nonsense. But Lai Tianyuan nonchalantly slapped Zhao Zhuo's hand away and stated that they were on the same side, so there was no need for denial. He recalled Lord Xiao and stated that Zhao Xin was intercepted and killed on the outskirts of the city 5 days ago. Lai Tianyuan leaned in towards Zhao Zhuo and declared that the one who did it was the leader of the Kun Guard, Lord Xiao. When Zhao Zhuo heard about the Kun Guard, he asked if it was the shadow unit directly under the former emperor's control and how they could do such a thing. But Lai Tianyuan stated that they should put that aside in the meantime because Zhao Zhuo should listen to the rest of the news. Zhao Zhuo got excited when Lai Tianyuan stated that although Lord Xiao killed Zhao Xin, she mistakenly believed that the imperial decree was issued by Tu Yi, so Tu Yi is her next target. He stated that it was good and that it was a relief, but he got alarmed when he realized something. Zhao Zhuo remarked that the Kun Guard had always operated independently and inquired how Lai Tianyuan had discovered that top-secret matter. Lai Tianyuan replied that he had his own methods and assured Zhao Zhuo not to worry about it. He mentioned that at that time, Zhao Zhuo had gotten lucky and it was a blessing in disguise. Lai Tianyuan suggested that they could use that opportunity to break the balance between Tu Yi and Tu Su. He pointed out that Tu Yi was hosting a banquet in the Kainyuan Hall that day with many people present. The night outside the palace remained eerily quiet. Lai Tianyuan advised that if Lord Xiao intended to act against Tu Yi, that night would be the best chance. He explained that he had made some arrangements to relax the vigilance of the palace guards that night. Lai Tianyuan proposed that with Lord Xiao leading the Kun Guard, even if the assassination failed, Tu Su would still bear the blame for regicide. He argued that without the moral high ground, even if Tu Su commanded the army, he would not be as formidable. Zhao Zhuo acknowledged that Lai Tianyuan had played it very cunningly to kill Tu Yi while framing Tu Su for it. However, Lai Tianyuan clarified that what he had mentioned earlier was just the ideal scenario because the final result still depended on fate. Zhao Zhuo questioned what he meant and whether he thought there might be problems with the plan. Lai Tianyuan did not answer Zhao Zhuo's question, stating that he had only come to inform him, then excused himself. He walked down the stairs of Zhao Zhuo's residence. Lai Tianyuan remarked that the only unpredictable factor in the plan was Tu Yi. He speculated that, logically, Fan Taozhu and Zhu Sha hated Tu Yi to the core, so that night in the Kainyuan Hall, they would seize the opportunity to attack Tu Yi amid the chaos. But Lai Tianyuan pondered, despite their cleverness and agility, whether they could really outwit Tu Yi, adding that he hoped he was just being paranoid. At that moment, in the Kainyuan Hall, Tu Yi's long-awaited harem cosplay party finally began. At the party, one of the ladies remarked that their sister looked stunning that night, to which that sister responded that she should stop because no matter what she did, she could not compare. Another lady complimented that their sister was radiant that night, and the king would surely choose her to accompany him, prompting the sister to ask why she was being so modest. But even before it started, the ladies had already become pawns in the power struggle among the noble family's women, fighting for favor in the harem. Suddenly, Lord Xiao entered the party. She commented on how debauched ruler Tuyi was shameless, and that all the costumes had no limits. Lord Xiao wondered what was wrong with those people since they clearly had no martial arts skills. She reflected on how they could unleash such chilling techniques. Lord Xiao observed that the debauched ruler's harem was truly terrifying. One of the ladies asked who Lord Xiao was and remarked on her provocative attire, and while Lord Xiao overheard this, the other lady pointed out that she had never seen Lord Xiao before and inquired whether she could be a palace maid who had gone mad with ambition. Lord Xiao felt alarmed, and one of the ladies commented that her outfit was creative, but in the harem, it was all about power and background, so ideas alone would not help her. She added that she needed patience and that the main task was important, so she could not target anyone else. Suddenly, someone announced that Tuyi had arrived, and Lord Xiao noted his approach. Tuyi entered with Fan Taoju and Zhu Sha, greeting everyone. He kissed his fingers and sent a flying kiss to everyone, proclaiming his love for them all. The ladies went wild. One declared she could not take it anymore. Another professed her love for Tuyi too, while another mentioned her desire to have children with him. Suddenly, Tuyi noticed Lord Xiao. He saw Lord Xiao's stats and recognized that she was the former Kun Guard leader under the late Emperor Tu Kaienjun, currently loyal to the former Crown Prince Tu Su, and intending to assassinate him to support Tu Su's ascension to the throne. Meanwhile, Lord Xiao wondered whether Tuyi's gaze had fallen on her and if he had noticed her. She quickly grabbed the dagger hidden beneath her clothes. Lord Xiao resolved that the debauched ruler should meet his end. Tuyi removed his glasses to take a good look at Lord Xiao. Suddenly, Lord Xiao called Tuyi and informed him that he should face his death. On the other hand, the ladies questioned Lord Xiao for daring to speak such treasonous words in front of Tuyi, but they wondered if it was the essence of the cosplay banquet. 5 days ago, in the Kainyuan Hall, Tuyi addressed his beloved concubines and announced that he had decided to host a cosplay harem banquet there in 5 days. One of the ladies called Tuyi, and as she admitted she was ignorant, she asked him what the cosplay banquet was. Tuyi explained that cosplay was about role-playing concubines, so they just needed to wear various beautiful costumes, play different roles together, and have fun playing games with him. At that time, the ladies looked at each other and were confused. Back in the present, the ladies remarked that the essence of the cosplay banquet lay in the fun and excitement of role-playing. What they saw was Lord Xiao and Tuyi exuding hearts and enjoying the excitement as Lord Xiao declared she was coming to assassinate Tuyi, and Tuyi responded as if Lord Xiao shouldn't. One of the ladies commented that Lord Xiao was a little vixen playing the role of an assassin, which was a dangerous role that easily aroused men's desire for conquest, so she was really cunning. Lord Xiao was alarmed when one of the ladies mentioned, however, that since she had seen through it, she wouldn't let Lord Xiao succeed. One of the ladies suggested Tuyi should let her take care of the assassin for him, but Lord Xiao suddenly grabbed the lady's arm. She swung and slammed the lady into the floor. Lord Xiao wondered if the woman was crazy because she clearly had no cultivation. Meanwhile, the other ladies ominously looked at Lord Xiao, and they wondered if it was what they called role-playing. All the other ladies declared they couldn't let the little vixen, Lord Xiao, steal the show. One of the ladies accused Lord Xiao of trying to attract Tuyi's attention with such crooked means. Another one questioned if Lord Xiao didn't know her place and if she was trying to forcefully rise in the rank without their consent. And another pointed out that in that harem, there was an order of seniority, so Lord Xiao should take a step back. The ladies stated they were there to protect Tuyi, so they would capture the assassin and not let her get close to him, and if she wanted to kill Tuyi, she would have to step over their dead bodies first. Lord Xiao remarked that Tuyi was lecherous and cruel, so she wondered why those harem concubines were willing to risk their lives to protect him and what made him so extraordinary. She was perplexed at the situation she was in. Lord Xiao declared that since it was their choice, she wouldn't show mercy to Tuyi's subordinates next. Tuyi warned that it was not good because those harem concubines were vital human resources for ensuring that he played the debauched ruler and completed the mission of destroying the country. He pleaded with Lord Xiao to stop and spare those girls. Lord Xiao was surprised, and she observed that instead of seizing the opportunity to escape, Tuyi was speaking out to stop her, which was quite courageous. One of the ladies mentioned that Tuyi was facing the assassin for them, which was touching, and as another lady expressed that she didn't mind dying as long as she could leave a mark in Tuyi's heart. Lord Xiao asked Tuyi if he was willing to die for the ladies because as long as she could trade his life for theirs, he would gladly kill fewer people. Tui explained that he couldn't die yet because he still needed to fulfill his mission before his national power points were depleted, or else the mission to destroy the country would fail. He apologized to Lord Zhao and insisted it was not time for him to die yet. Lord Zhao dismissed this, remarking that, as expected, it was just empty words. However, Tui offered to abdicate the throne to Tu Su as a compromise. He inquired if Lord Zhao's purpose in assassinating him was to let Tu Su ascend to the throne. Lord Zhao was surprised that Tui knew everything about his identity and purpose and wondered if it was a trap. Lord Zhao asked Tui what he was up to and what his purpose was. Tui smiled. He replied they should just be honest because he was done pretending. Tui explained his purpose was actually to be a lazy and incompetent ruler because a throne couldn't be compared to a harem of beautiful women. He lacked the ability to govern, and he had no desire to be an emperor, so it was better to give it to someone capable. The ladies were taken aback when they heard what Tui revealed. Suddenly, Downey informed Tui that his behavior triggered that Chen Kaio rebirth event, a sudden nation-destroying event, where Tui is threatened and forced to abdicate to the general, and if the abdication is successful, the event is considered complete, and Tui loses 1,000 national power points. Tui remarked the gamble paid off because originally, his little trick was just to keep the harem, but he didn't expect to trigger a nation-destroying event directly, and subtracting 1,000 of his national power points should reset it to 0. On the other hand, Lord Zhao wondered if there was really someone in the world who wasn't attached to power, and she concluded it must be a trick by Tui so she wouldn't be fooled. Lord Zhao instructed Tui to forget it because, real or not, if he was going to abdicate to Tu Su, she would still kill him anyway and let Tu Su ascend the throne too. Tui questioned why Lord Zhao still wanted to kill him, and he decided he must intensify his persuasion efforts. He argued killing him at that moment would only tarnish Tu Su's reputation as a king killer, so even if he became emperor, it wouldn't be legitimate, and everything he did was for the sake of his beloved crown prince brother. Lord Zhao remained speechless for a moment, and she recalled Tu Kaienjun. She recalled how Tu Kaienjun called her and asked her if she considered him a good emperor when he established the Kaian dynasty and pacified the northern chaos. Lord Zhao acknowledged that with Tu Kaienjun's literary and military talents and his decisive actions, he could be counted as a wise monarch throughout the ages. But Tu Kaienjun lamented that, unfortunately, his methods were only suitable for conquering in troubled times, so in the coming Kaian dynasty, perhaps an emperor like him wouldn't be needed. Lord Zhao disagreed and asserted that the Kaian dynasty would always need an emperor like Tu Kaienjun. She was surprised when she noticed Tu Kaienjun's appearance. Tu Kaienjun responded that he knew his time was short, but for the Kaian dynasty it might not be a bad thing. He expressed hope that the successor, even if not as talented as him or even lazy and reckless, would at least be tolerant, peaceful, and not eager for quick success and instant benefits. Lord Zhao admitted that at the time, she naturally believed the successor mentioned by Tu Kaienjun was Tu Su, but currently, it seemed that laziness, recklessness, tolerance, and peace were Tui's traits that were quite in line with Tu Kaienjun's description. Back in the present, Lord Zhao concluded there was no way because Tu Su was the legitimate eldest son of Tu Kaienjun, the legal heir of the Kaian dynasty, so there was no way she could be swayed by a few words from Tui. Lord Zhao ordered that in the meantime, they should control Tui first, take him to Tu Su, and make plans, and Tui was puzzled by her reaction. She commanded that Tui make a trip to Lintong City in the northern country to complete the abdication ceremony with Tu Su in person. Tui responded it was great as long as he could see Tu Su and complete the abdication ceremony. But Jude Shah suddenly took a step forward and cautioned them to hold on. Tui was baffled when Jude Shah asked Lord Zhao if she intended to take Tui hostage and if she had forgotten about the talisman in her hand. Jude Shah released her powerful aura while she prepared her talismans. Lord Zhao remarked that he underestimated Tui because there was actually a skilled practitioner of talismans by his side. She admitted she was too naive because Tui's abdication speech earlier was a lie. Lord Zhao observed that Tui was a debauched ruler who was indeed adept at playing with people's hearts. At that moment, Tui himself was completely confused, and he wondered what the current situation was. Suddenly, Fan Taozhu tapped Tui's shoulder. Fan Taozhu assured him that he should rest assured because Jude Shah's talisman skills were formidable, and her combat power was estimated to be 50-50 against Lord Zhao. She noted that with Jude Shah protecting Tui, Lord Zhao had no chance, but Lord Zhao questioned Fan Taozhu, asking who had instructed Jude Shah to protect him, and commented that they didn't need to do those unnecessary things. Fan Taozhu was speechless, and she agreed it had been right to have Jude Shah intervene earlier. On the other hand, Tui was displeased. The night before Lai Tianyuan sent Fan Taozhu and Jude Shah into the palace, they had a follow-up conversation. Lai Tianyuan inquired if they knew what their mission was after entering the palace and getting close to Tu Yi. Jude Sha confirmed she knew, stating that it was to seize the opportunity to kill the debauched ruler Tu Yi and avenge their families. Lai Tianyuan laughed and remarked that the debauched ruler Tu Yi, who slaughtered their two families, couldn't be dealt with by killing him just once, so their ultimate task was to bring about the destruction of the Qian dynasty established by Tu Qianzhen. He instructed that for the meantime, they needed to ensure that Tu Yi stayed alive. Fan Taozhu and Jude Sha were surprised when they heard what Lai Tianyuan mentioned. Lai Tianyuan explained that originally among the princes, Tu Yi appeared the most incompetent and foolish, so he had previously helped him ascend the throne while Tu Su led the army outside, intending to change the dynasty under Tu Yi's rule. Fan Taozhu surmised that Lai Tianyuan wanted them to be concubines during that chaotic era by Tu Yi's side and tempt him to destroy the Qian dynasty by himself. Lai Tianyuan acknowledged that Fan Taozhu was indeed sharp-minded, seeing through it instantly. However, Lai Tianyuan revealed that what Fan Taozhu guessed was only his initial plan. He elaborated that after Tu Yi ascended the throne, his actions seemed to have changed, and his previous incompetence and foolishness seemed like a disguise, making it harder for him to understand Tu Yi, so the two of them needed to take his place to observe Tu Yi closely and find his weaknesses. Fan Taozhu remarked it was the first time she had seen that expression on Lai Tianyuan's face. She looked up to Lai Tianyuan with curious eyes. Fan Taozhu wondered whether Lai Tianyuan was afraid or excited. Suddenly, Lai Tianyuan called Fan Taozhu. He stated she had always been clever, so she could adapt to the situation by Tu Yi's side. Lai Tianyuan remarked that Jude Sha was proficient in talismans and alchemy, strong in combat, but simple-minded. But he emphasized there was one thing they must remember. Lai Tianyuan instructed them not to let Tu Yi stand on the same side as Tu Su, and Fan Taozhu and Jude Sha both confirmed they understood. Back in the present, Fan Taozhu smiled. Fan Taozhu concluded that Lai Tianyuan had not misjudged after all because Tu Yi's incompetence and foolishness were his disguise. Fan Taozhu explained at that time, Tu Yi invited the Harem to that strange cosplay banquet precisely to make contact with the Kun Guard and unite with Tu Su to deal with Lai Tianyuan. As Jude Sha and Lord Xiao continued fighting, Fan Taozhu lamented unfortunately, Tu Yi's plan was already anticipated by Lai Tianyuan. On the other hand, Tu Yi demanded both Jude Sha and Lord Xiao should stop fighting. Fan Taozhu was discreetly laughing while she watched Tu Yi, who was in a panic. As she continued to laugh, Tu Yi suddenly stopped moving. With sharp eyes, Tu Yi suddenly turned to Fan Taozhu. Fan Taozhu admitted she almost got carried away and nearly got caught. Meanwhile, Tu Yi remarked he almost forgot that Fan Taozhu and Jude Sha are both under Lai Tianyuan's control. On the other hand, Jude Sha and Lord Xiao were still fighting, and they seemed even. Tu Yi revealed Lai Tianyuan wanted to use him as a puppet, so they would definitely stop him from abdicating to Tu Su, so he must control Jude Sha's actions in order to trigger the Qingqiao rebirth emergency event. He recalled the conditions of the event, and he immediately got an idea. Tu Yi wondered how he could almost forget Jude Sha's weakness. He immediately went and wrapped his arm around Jude Sha. Tu Yi grabbed Jude Sha by the waist. He stated whenever Jude Sha is touched by the opposite sex in sensitive areas like the chin, she enters a state of mental breakdown. And he added as the supreme ruler, there was no way he would let his beloved concubine protect him. Jude Sha was flustered and she struggled to speak. She was dizzy, but she still tried to address Tu Yi. Tu Yi immediately took the chance and turned to Lord Xiao. He immediately urged Lord Xiao should hurry up and seize the opportunity while she has the chance. Lord Xiao was surprised and puzzled by what was happening. She wondered what was going on and if it was another trick by the tyrant. Tu Yi asked Lord Xiao what she was waiting for and insisted it would be too late once the guards arrived. Lord Xiao conceded she should not wait, so she should just capture Tu Yi first and figure things out. Tu Yi agreed it was right and that it had finally happened. He gladly got taken by Lord Xiao while Jude Sha was losing her consciousness. Jude Sha was falling to the floor, but before Jude Sha's body could touch the floor, smoke surrounded her, and both Tu Yi and Lord Xiao were baffled. Tu Yi and Lord Xiao were both surprised when a dark aura started coming out of Jude Sha. The second layer of Jude Sha's hidden attribute is that when she falls into a state of mental breakdown due to male contact, she will perceive any other female who touches the same male, except for Fan Taozhu, as a mortal enemy, further escalating the situation. Lord Xiao was confused when she saw Jude Sha. Jude Sha demanded Lord Xiao for daring to compete with her for a man. Jude Sha took a step forward. She exuded a powerful, dark aura, and Tu Yi got scared and moved out of her way. Lord Xiao looked nervous as she prepared to fight Jude Sha. Zhu Sha became enraged and continued to release her dark aura. She used her skill, 3rd level True Fire. Zhu Sha levitated in front of Lord Xiao and summoned a huge fireball above her. Lord Xiao was astonished at Zhu Sha's attack. On the other hand, Fan Taozhu appeared nervous. Meanwhile, Tuyi was surprised that snot came out of his nose. He remarked that if Lord Xiao were taken out, the Qingqiao rebirth event would definitely fail. Tuyi immediately ran toward Lord Xiao. He urged Lord Xiao to quickly get out of the way. Zhu Sha hurled the attack at Lord Xiao. Tuyi managed to grab Lord Xiao and dodge Zhu Sha's attack. A huge explosion occurred in the Kainyuan Hall, and it was powerful enough to be seen from outside the palace. On the other hand, Tuyi accidentally kissed Lord Xiao, and Lord Xiao was surprised. Lord Xiao found herself in Tuyi's arms, and the two of them were still midair, surrounded by the dust and debris flying around. She became flustered and called Tuyi a scoundrel. But suddenly, her head hit the ground and she lost consciousness. A few moments later, the dust and debris began to dissipate. Tuyi, who held Lord Xiao in his arms, was slowly revealed. Fan Taozhu stood surprised and speechless at what she saw. She was alarmed when she noticed Tuyi's silhouette standing in the distance. Tuyi appeared in shock, staring into space. He was startled when Downy notified him that his actions had led to the failure of the Qingqiao rebirth event, and triggered the Qin King Circling the Pillar National Destruction event. Downey explained that in the original history of Tuyi's world, the assassin Jing Qi had attempted to assassinate the Qin King Ying Zheng in the main hall, but Ying Zheng had evaded using superb movement skills. Later, Jing Qi was attacked by the famous physician Xiao Wu, who had thrown a medicine box that hit him, causing the assassination to fail. Meanwhile, the palace attendants were running around in a panic due to the explosion. Downey notified Tuyi that the Qin King Circling the Pillar event triggered under the following conditions. 1. An assassin attempts to assassinate the host in the main hall. 2nd. A third-party character proficient in medicine is present during the assassination. 3rd. The third-party character proficient in medicine takes action against the assassin. If Tuyi defeated the assassin, the event would be considered complete, and he would gain 1,000 national power points. Downey congratulated Tuyi. Tuyi cursed and called it a crappy national destruction event. He questioned why events not only deducted points but also added points. Tuyi released a powerful aura as he cursed Downey, and Fan Taozhu was alarmed when she saw that. Fan Taozhu remarked that Tuyi had such a strong aura, and the two experts fell, but he was unharmed. Tuyi still stood there, enraged. Fan Taozhu noted that she was starting to understand the expression Lai Tianyuan had when talking about Tuyi. Meanwhile, Lord Xiao lay unconscious on the floor. A few moments later, Lord Xiao regained her consciousness. Tuyi observed that she was awake. Lord Xiao remained disoriented. She inquired where she was, and Tuyi informed her it was his sleeping chamber. Lord Xiao was speechless, and she accused Tuyi of being a tyrant and shameless debauchee. Tuyi appeared puzzled when he heard what Lord Xiao uttered. Lord Xiao declared it didn't matter if Tuyi had her, but Tuyi cut her off and demanded what she was thinking. Tuyi explained that without him, Lord Xiao would have already died at the hands of Lai Tianyuan. Earlier, Lai Tianyuan, who was responsible for palace security, led guards to the hall in less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn after the assassination attempt. Lai Tianyuan ordered the guards to protect Tuyi and capture the assassin. He immediately confessed that his negligence had put Tuyi in grave danger, so he deserved death. Tuyi dismissed it, saying it didn't matter because he was unscathed. Lai Tianyuan vowed he would take the assassin away and investigate the mastermind behind the scenes. But Tuyi countered that wouldn't do. He struggled to find a reason to give Lai Tianyuan. Tuyi remarked that the assassin looked good, so he would keep her for company. Lai Tianyuan warned that the assassin was very dangerous, so it might not be appropriate to keep her. Tuyi responded that he enjoyed a bit of excitement. He smirked as he challenged Lai Tianyuan. Tuyi asked Lai Tianyuan if he claimed he couldn't handle a weaponless and immobile woman. Lai Tianyuan was at a loss for words for a moment, and he admitted he dared not. Tuyi instructed that Fan Taozhu would stay there to look after Zhu Sha. He directed Zhao Shu to come with him while everyone else could leave. Back in the present, Tuyi declared that the Qingqiao rebirth event had failed. But Tuyi added that Lord Xiao still had value, so she needed to be sent back to Tusu to continue the great work of destroying nations. Lord Xiao complained that Tuyi was too close and that it was up to him to kill or torture her, but he just shouldn't get too close. Lord Xiao declared that Tuyi should kill her immediately. She stated that she had taken care of the messenger Tuyi sent to execute Prince Tusu. Lord Xiao remarked that sooner or later Tusu will take care of Tuyi, which puzzled Tuyi. Tui inquired Lord Xiao when he executed Tu Su. Lord Xiao announced that Tui shouldn't play games in front of her because Tu Su is the prince appointed by Tu Kaienjun, and she questioned Tui how he could sit securely on the throne if he didn't kill Tu Su. Zhao Shu considered that the matter had nothing to do with Tui because it was done behind his back by her foster father. Tui pondered that looking at Zhao Shu's expression, she knew something, so he bet it was the old man Zhao Zhuo playing tricks again, forging the decree behind his back. But he reflected that it might be a blessing in disguise, as he could take the blame for that and stir up more hatred against Tu Su. Lord Xiao was alarmed when she saw Tui's expression. Tui laughed menacingly, and he uttered that he remembered that it was his decree. Zhao Shu was puzzled when she heard what Tui articulated. Tui grabbed the sword on the wall. He expressed that after all, Tu Su controls those powerful troops when they should have been left to him by his father. Zhao Shu wondered why Tui shouldered the blame willingly. Tui pronounced that thinking about it at that moment, simply executing Tu Su with a decree is too dull. He conveyed that he has decided to have some fun with Tu Su in a more interesting way. Lord Xiao turned pale when she saw that Tui was about to swing his sword at her. Without hesitation, Tui slashed Lord Xiao. Lord Xiao closed her eyes in acceptance, but she slowly opened her eyes when she felt that she was unharmed. Lord Xiao saw that the chains binding her were broken. She queried Tui if he wouldn't kill her, and Tui indicated that since she had killed his messenger, she could deliver a new decree to Tu Su in his place. Tui asserted that Tu Kaienjun noted Tu Su was a born warrior, so to train him for the throne. He was appointed as the prince of the northern province and the commander of the northern army, but from what he saw, Tu Su is just a brute with some raw strength. There was nothing to fear. He informed that on that day, not only will he strip Tu Su of his titles and positions, but he will also strip him of his Tu surname and demote him to a commoner. Lord Xiao was surprised when she heard what Tui observed. Tui mentioned that Lord Xiao should tell Tu Su if he disagrees with his decision. He commented that Tu Su could try to rebel and reclaim what was rightfully his. Tui recounted that he will be waiting for Tu Su in the capital. He contemplated that playing the foolish, arrogant tyrant, jealous of his own brother, provoking recklessly, that acting was almost too realistic. The system notified Tui that his actions triggered the second-level national calamity event, Jingnan Rebellion, and when Tui heard that, he wondered how the second level differed from the regular national calamity event. The system related that in the original history of Tui's world, Ming Emperor Jianwen Zhu Yunwen ordered the removal of the northern prince Yan Wang Zhu Dai, sparking his rebellion, and the Yan army attacked the Ming capital, Jinling, and Jianwen Zhu Yunwen's fate remained unknown, leading to the Jingnan Rebellion, so the conditions were that the capital has a powerful prince with troops and Tui, as the emperor, issues an order to remove the prince's power. The system acknowledged that if the prince rebels due to that, it was considered the first phase of the event, deducting 1,000 national power points from Tui, and if the prince's army breaches the capital, it is the completion of the second phase, deducting 10,000 national power points from Tui. Tui surmised that it was truly a second-level national calamity event, and if both phases are completed, his national power points will definitely be negative. As he laughed maniacally, Lord Xiao mused that the foolish tyrant seemed a bit off his rocker. Lord Xiao reckoned that it might be for the best because at least Tu Su still has a chance to reclaim the throne. While Tui waved goodbye to Lord Xiao, Zhao Shu considered that Tui not only let the assassin go but also deliberately took the blame for Zhao Zhuo, and she wondered what the purpose of sending Lord Xiao to provoke Tu Su was. Suddenly, Tui realized something, and he was speechless. He pondered that he couldn't solely rely on those sudden events because, knowing the system's nature, it might turn the negative points into positive ones. So to complete the nation-destroying task, he still needed to use the other cunning ministers around him. Zhao Shu was surprised and puzzled when Tui suddenly looked at her. Tui reflected that Zhao Shu had Zhao Zhuo behind her, and as he recalled, if Zhao Zhuo didn't always urge him to attend the court, he believed that it could be useful. Meanwhile, Zhao Shu looked so confused. Tui called Zhao Shu. He uttered that lately, he has been paying more attention to Fan Taozhu and Zhu Sha and neglected Zhao Shu, so he would apologize. Zhao Shu stated that hearing that from Tui terrifies her. Tui declared that Zhao Shu shouldn't worry and inquired her if he didn't say before that she could freely inform Zhao Zhuo about his situation. He remarked that at that time, he would request Zhao Shu to relay a message to Zhao Zhuo. Tui announced that Zhao Shu should tell Zhao Zhuo that he will be attending court and presiding over matters, so he should be prepared. Zhao Shu affirmed yes. The morning came. At the court, an attendant announced and proclaimed that the Prime Minister Zhao Zhuo has arrived. Zhao Zhuo stepped into the court. One of the ministers greeted Zhao Zhuo as he walked past them. Zhao Zhuo repeatedly voiced that it was good as the others greeted him as well, and he articulated that there was no need to stand on ceremony. He looked at the line of ministers that bowed respectfully. Zhao Zhuo was puzzled when he noticed something. He inquired if Lai Tianyuan hadn't arrived yet. An attendant reported to Zhao Zhuo and conveyed that Lai Tianyuan mentioned earlier that he didn't feel well. Zhao Zhuo scoffed in his mind as he surmised that Lai Tianyuan still underestimates his plans. He noted that the attendant should never mind it because Lai Tianyuan's health is important and it doesn't matter if he was absent that day. Zhao Zhuo assumed that after he dealt with Tu Yi that day and showed his authority in the court, he would settle the score with Lai Tianyuan later. Suddenly, an attendant announced and mentioned that the emperor had arrived. The attendant repeated the announcement and asserted that the emperor had arrived. Zhao Zhuo's eyebrow raised when he saw Tu Yi. Tu Yi just confidently walked past Zhao Zhuo. He looked so serious as he entered the court, and Zhao Shu was with him. One of the ministers whispered and queried since when does an emperor attend court with his concubines, and another questioned if that wasn't against the protocol. Tu Yi laughed, and he interrogated the ministers if they couldn't handle just one. The ministers were puzzled by Tu Yi's remark, and they raised their heads to look at him. They all lost their minds with what they saw. Tu Yi brought a lot of concubines, and he requested the minister's opinion about them while laughing maniacally. One of the ministers lost consciousness while the other called for 2 Kaienjun. One of the concubines inquired if it was the Grand Court Assembly. Another one declared that it looked so boring. And another one greeted one of the ministers. Tu Yi laughed, and he stated that he considered the imperial concubines wanted to experience the Grand Court Assembly and assumed that no one would object. Zhao Zhuo wondered if Tu Yi had lost his mind and why he suddenly did something like that. One of the ministers remarked that the most worthless maiden they sent to the palace before stood up there, which is embarrassing because they only sent them and because Lai Tianyuan suggested it. Another minister queried Tu Yi if he deliberately brought the harem to court to humiliate them. Zhao Zhuo pronounced that bringing the harem to the Grand Court Assembly goes against the protocols, and he questioned Tu Yi what his intention was. Tu Yi uttered that everyone shouldn't worry because he doesn't have any other intentions, and he interrogated them if it wasn't reasonable to bring the harem to the court meeting as a mere foolish ruler indulging in luxury. Zhao Zhuo was speechless. Tu Yi wondered what Zhao Zhuo's opinion about what he did was, and he reflected that as long as he has no shame, Zhao Zhuo can't touch him. He called one of the attendants, and as the attendant responded, he probed him if he wasn't going to find seats for everyone. A few moments later, cushions were lined up on the floor. Tu Yi announced that it was his first time arranging that, so they should just squeeze in wherever they could. And one of the concubines requested if they really had to sit on the ground like that, while the other declared that he would like to sit next to Tu Yi on the dragon throne. The system notified Tu Yi that due to his disruption of the etiquette at the Grand Court Assembly, 500 national power points will be deducted. Tu Yi pondered that the trick of causing chaos at the Grand Court Assembly indeed works, so he will create a few more etiquette-breaking incidents later to further lose his royal dignity in front of the ministers and lose more points. Meanwhile, the ministers still lost their minds over what Tu Yi did. On the other hand, Zhao Zhuo thought that he will bear with Tu Yi for the time being and he will show him later. Tu Yi proclaimed that it was his first court session and he addressed if any of the ministers had anything to report. The ministers surmised that the drama was about to unfold and Zhao Zhuo was about to make his move against Tu Yi. Zhao Zhuo informed that he, Tu Yi's servant, has something to report. He noted that recently, auspicious signs were found on the Far East Island, and they were presented to him. Tu Yi was intrigued, and he inquired what the auspicious signs were. Zhao Zhuo laughed menacingly. He commented that it was none other than the divine beast, Blue Dragon. Zhao Zhuo conveyed that he imagined that symbolized the rise of their great Kaiyan dynasty, so he wanted to present that auspicious sign to Tu Yi that day. When Tu Yi heard about the rise of the great Kaiyan dynasty, he seemed uninterested. Zhao Zhuo supposed that Tu Yi didn't seem pleased hearing about the auspicious signs, and he wondered if Tu Yi had seen through his plan. He mentioned that in any case, he requested for Tu Yi to have a look at the divine beast. Zhao Zhuo presented the divine beast. A huge foot of a monster stomped on the floor. The ministers were alarmed when they saw it. The others were too shocked to react. On the other hand, Tu Yi was puzzled. A huge lizard walked into the court, and it hissed. Tu Yi was speechless as it was presented in front of him. He lost his composure as he cursed in his mind and considered that it was a blue dragon. Tu Yi believed that in his world, it was a Komodo dragon, and he wondered what kind of place the Far East Island was. Zhao Zhuo stated that Tu Yi should look at how majestic that blue dragon is. He wondered how Tu Yi would respond now that he had presented that spirit. The system notified Tu Yi that the actions of the key figure in the destruction of the country, Zhao Zhuo, triggered the sudden national destroying event inverting the deer, and Tu Yi supposed that a sudden event doesn't necessarily have to be triggered by him. The system notified Tu Yi that during Emperor Qin Ershi's reign, Prime Minister Zhao Gao presented a spotted deer to Emperor Hu Hai at court and called it a horse. The courtiers followed suit, so from on, Emperor Hu Hai's authority gradually fell into Zhao Gao's hands. So the triggering conditions for inverting the deer were the power behind the throne presents an animal to Tuyi at court, and he would blatantly lie, identifying the animal as another type of animal, inciting the courtiers to pressure Tuyi into admitting it. And if everyone present agrees with the power behind the throne statement, the event is considered completed, and 2,000 national power points will be deducted from Tuyi. Tuyi concluded that Zhao Zhuo indeed could bring him surprises. He wondered if it was time for the next performance. The Komodo dragon opened its mouth and its saliva dripped from its teeth. It tried to intimidate Tuyi, and Tuyi was speechless. The attendants handling the Komodo dragon tried all their might to hold it back. Meanwhile, the ministers laughed with each other. Tuyi inquired Zhao Zhuo why the precious item did not look like an auspicious blue dragon. Zhao Zhuo reasoned that Tuyi had indeed fallen into the trap, so Tuyi should watch him manipulate him. He questioned the ministers if any of them recognized the divine beast and declared that they should tell them if it was really a blue dragon. One of the ministers remarked yes, and it was clearly a blue dragon because he had the fortune of seeing one during his travels in the East Sea Island when he was young. Another minister noted that Zhao Zhuo indeed has vast knowledge, and in an ancestral book passed down in his family, the Sea and Mountain Classic, that blue dragon looked exactly the same. The other ministers asserted that it was truly a blue dragon, and Tuyi was blessed. Zhao Zhuo realized that he openly defied Tuyi's rule and usurped imperial authority, which was such a heinous act of treachery, and he wondered how it felt for Tuyi. On the other hand, Tuyi judged that it was great, perfect, wonderful, and it was very well done by all of them. But suddenly, one of the concubines commented that the creature looked so disgusting. Tuyi wondered who dared to speak for him. He immediately realized that it was his harem, and one of the concubines queried how such an ugly creature could possibly be an auspicious blue dragon. Tuyi surmised that he miscalculated. He assumed that, fortunately, there was still a way to remedy that. Tuyi called Zhao Shu, and he probed her if she wanted to say something. Zhao Shu inquired Tuyi what she would say. Tuyi mentioned that he wanted to hear Zhao Shu say something. He pressed Zhao Shu if the thing beneath was really an auspicious blue dragon. Zhao Shu believed that Tuyi knew that she was a spy for Zhao Zhuo, yet he had always allowed her to stay by his side, and currently, he wanted her to take a stand there. She considered that, thinking it over, it was because Tuyi is confident in himself, so she posed no threat to him at all. Zhao Shu presumed that, on the contrary, Tuyi gave her opportunities, waiting for her to choose between him and Zhao Zhuo. She recalled the moments where Tuyi took care of her. Zhao Shu imagined how happy Fan Taozhu and Jude Shaw would be in Tuyi's arms. She suspected that she knew what choice to make. Zhao Zhuo was surprised when he saw Zhao Shu standing up. He reflected that the time was right and that Zhao Shu should speak up and let the puppet emperor know his worth and let him know who was the real ruler of the great Kayan dynasty. But Zhao Shu inquired how such an ugly thing could be the sacred beast, the blue dragon. Zhao Zhuo was surprised. Zhao Shu questioned Zhao Zhuo if he tried to deceive the emperor with such a crime of treason. Zhao Zhuo was lost for words when he heard what Zhao Shu uttered. He declared that Zhao Shu actually betrayed him. Meanwhile, Tuyi surmised that Zhao Shu didn't actually betray him. He wondered what Zhao Shu did if the plan wasn't to help Zhao Zhuo stab him in the back, and he concluded that Zhao Shu got the target wrong. Zhao Shu queried the other concubines if they didn't think she was right. One of the concubines stated that Zhao Shu was right because that was obviously a four-legged snake, pretending to be a blue dragon. Another concubine remarked that there was no dragon as ugly as that, and another commented that Zhao Zhuo's crime of treason deserves execution of his entire clan. The concubines started chanting, and they pronounced that they should execute Zhao Zhuo's entire clan. Zhao Zhuo turned to Lord Xia and probed him if it wasn't his illegitimate daughter sent to the palace who announced to execute his entire plan, and how he usually disciplined her. Lord Xia huffed and puffed as he rolled up his sleeves. He yelled, and as he asserted that it was insolence, he demanded his illegitimate daughter how he had taught her and questioned her for daring to be rude to Zhao Zhuo. But Lord Xia's illegitimate daughter noted that he was the insolent one. She requested Lord Xia if the Great Kayan belonged to Tuyi or Zhao Zhuo. Lord Xia's illegitimate daughter observed that back then, he didn't have faith in the newly enthroned emperor, so he sent her to the palace as cannon fodder, and at the moment, they had already severed all ties. Lord Xia coughed up blood, which surprised Zhao Zhuo and got the other minister worried. He mentioned that his illegitimate daughter was an unfilial child, and the other minister conveyed that someone should help because Lord Xia spit blood from anger. On the other hand, the other concubines looked at each other with a mischievous look in their eyes. One of the concubines expressed that she too must report that her father disregarded the lives of the common people and embezzled relief funds. Another concubine acknowledged that her father forcibly occupied peasant land. Another concubine affirmed that her father is morally corrupt and visited brothels every day, while another explained that her father takes lives casually. Zhao Zhuo wondered how they, the ministers, could be overshadowed by the harem in court, and he judged that Lai Tianyuan was right that Tuyi was indeed not to be messed with. He was alarmed when he saw Tuyi's expression. While the concubines seethed in rage, Tuyi just stood back with a dark expression on his face. Tuyi frowned as he drew his sword out. Zhao Zhuo wondered if it could be Tuyi. Tuyi became gigantic in Zhao Zhuo's perspective. Zhao Zhuo was nervous and he sweat profusely. In his eyes, Tuyi has become a mighty golden dragon. Zhao Zhuo wondered if Tuyi tried to use a woman's influence to get rid of him. He considered that it was impossible, absolutely impossible. Zhao Zhuo was in a daze, and he just stood there. The ministers were astonished when they saw that Tuyi did. The concubines were surprised as well. Tuyi has cut the head of the Komodo dragon. He called Zhao Zhuo. Tuyi remarked that it was not worth damaging their relationship over such a creature. He stated that whether it was auspicious or not, he would cut it down with one stroke just like that. Tuyi declared that they should pretend that day's court meeting never happened. He inquired Zhao Zhuo what he pondered about it. Zhao Zhuo noted that Tuyi was right. A few moments later, Tuyi went back to his chamber. The system notified Tuyi that the system calculation was completed, and due to him disrupting Zhao Zhuo's inverting the deer event in court, the event was thwarted, causing Zhao Zhuo and the courtiers to be intimidated, and Tuyi's imperial authority was further consolidated. The system informed that Tuyi's national power points increased by 2,000, and his current national power point balance is 2,900. Tuyi's eyes were bloodshot due to anger, and he cursed in his mind. Meanwhile, Zhao Shu wondered why Tuyi does not seem very happy, even though he intimidated Zhao Zhuo and the courtiers in court. Zhao Shu queried Tuyi if he was satisfied with her performance at the court meeting. Tuyi slowly turned to face Zhao Shu. He commented that it was alright, but it would be better if Zhao Shu could fully grasp his intentions. Zhao Shu was surprised when she heard what Tuyi mentioned. She reflected that if she hadn't proactively understood Tuyi's thoughts earlier, and had to rely on verbal reminders to stand up, Tuyi would not be satisfied with her performance. Zhao Shu believed that she must follow Tuyi's thought process more actively next time, while Tuyi mused that he had a bad feeling. Tuyi surmised that since Zhao Shu had openly shown loyalty, and broken with Zhao Zhuo, causing Zhao Zhuo's prestige to plummet, it was impossible to rely on them to help him complete the task of ruining the country. He concluded that he could only rely on Lai Tianyuan now. Tuyi announced that Zhao Shu should come and help him draft an imperial edict. Zhao Shu questioned what kind of edict Tuyi wanted to draft. Tuyi pronounced that he wanted to promote Lai Tianyuan to the position of Grand Chancellor. He interrogated Zhao Shu if something was wrong. Zhao Shu responded no and that there was nothing at all. Zhao Shu considered that the Grand Chancellor is a position above the left and right Prime Ministers. She believed that since the founding of the Great Kaiyan, only Lord Wai Xinglu held that position 100 years ago, and the position has been vacant ever since. Zhao Shu pondered that since Zhao Zhuo had just lost his power, Tuyi wanted to appoint Lai Tianyuan as Grand Chancellor. She wondered if Tuyi planned to take action against Zhao Zhuo and Lai Tianyuan. Zhao Shu wondered if it was the reason why Tuyi used the edict to divide the two of them. Tuyi placed the imperial seal into the edict. He was surprised with what happened after he did that. The system notified Tuyi that due to his arrangements, Tu Su, the commander of the Northern Army, had already raised troops in Beijing. The system notified Tuyi that the rebellion of Jingnan first stage was completed, so Tuyi's national power points decreased by 2,000 and his current balance was 900 points. Tuyi laughed maniacally, and as he wondered if the points he gained in court were already deducted, he concluded that it was as expected of him. He continued to laugh maniacally while still holding onto the imperial seal. Half a month later, a group of soldiers were pierced with arrows, and their corpses lay on the field. 80 miles north of Kaiyanjing City, the southern advancing Northern Army defeated the Longsang guards of Kaiyanjing City, capturing countless supplies. One of the soldiers created a small cut into one of the sacks. He was surprised when grain started pouring out of the hole. The soldier stated that it was all military provisions, so they didn't have to worry about supplies. Tu Su rode mightily on his horse as he led the Northern Army. Suddenly, Wang Jian pulled up beside Tu Su on his horse. Wang Jian is the deputy commander of the Northern Army, and he called for Tu Su. He declared that their army has been advancing south for over 10 days and they haven't encountered any royalist troops, making their progress smooth. But Wang Jian remarked that in the recent battle with the Longsang guards, their victory was too easy, so he suspected that there might be a trap. Tu Su was amused, and he inquired in what way the victory was easy. Wang Jian noted that the Longsang guards' duty was to protect Kaiyanjing, and their daily command is under Lai Tianyuan, and although their combat strength isn't as strong as the Northern Army, they are still considered elite. He commented that, however, the Longsang guard fled and left their provisions before even engaging with them, clearly intending to lose to them on purpose. Tu Su mentioned that Wang Jian was right. Lord Zhao announced that Tu Yi is cunning and despicable, and if he and Lai Tianyuan colluded, there must be a trap in that. Tu Su observed that, of course, he knew Tu Yi did it on purpose. He queried them if they assumed that he didn't understand his own brother's schemes. A few years ago, the young Tu Su was in the palace. Tu Kainjun inquired what was the next line after the friend from afar. Tu Su repeated the line and pondered about the answer. Tu Kainjun patiently waited for Tu Su's response. Tu Su stated that he already remembered and that a friend from afar, though far, must be punished, which made Tu Kainjun sigh. Tu Kainjun declared that as the crown prince, Tu Su had no brains at all, and he queried him how he could entrust the great Kain to him. Tu Su remarked that Tu Kainjun doesn't know that, but his brain works just fine because yesterday at the training ground, he head-butted several Longsang soldiers. Tu Kainjun pronounced that Tu Su was not allowed to eat that day. He also mentioned that Tu Su had to copy his lesson 100 times. Tu Kainjun left Tu Su alone in the room. Tu Su looked so dejected as he stared at the scroll in front of him. He noted that he was hungry and that he really wanted to eat something. Suddenly, Tu Yi threw a rock on Tu Su's head. Tu Yi called Tu Su from the window and questioned if he got scolded by the old man again. He uttered that he really doesn't understand because Tu Su is the crown prince, yet he has a harder life than he does, a useless prince. Tu Su observed that it was the reason why he envies Tu Yi. He asserted that Tu Kainjun has high expectations for him, and he wants him to be a wise ruler remembered for ages. Tu Yi scoffed and commented that if he couldn't enjoy life, it was not worth being emperor. Tu Su claimed that he didn't know how to govern a country and he just wanted to lead troops in battle, and he wondered why he had to be a Tu Su. He announced that as the eldest son of the Tu family, as the crown prince of the great Kain, he had no choice. Tu Yi raised his brow and he was speechless. He expressed that it was simple. Tu Yi conveyed that in the future, he will take the emperor's position from Tu Su. He affirmed that he would even strip Tu Su of the Tu surname so he could live the life he wanted. Back in the present, Tu Su averred that Tu Yi was an idiot. Tu Su called all his troops and proclaimed that they should hear his command. He voiced that they would march to Kainjing City. The sun set and evening came. Back at the palace, Lai Tianyuan visited Tu Yi in his quarters. Zhao Shu requested for Lai Tianyuan to go back and indicated that Tu Yi was not available to see him at the moment. Lai Tianyuan informed that the northern army left Beijing and marched south 5 days ago, and currently they are only 800 miles from Kainjing, so he must see Tu Yi. Zhao Shu revealed that Tu Yi was already aware of that, but he believes that with Lai Tianyuan's capabilities, he could handle the matter well. She explained that after all, the Longsang guards were already under Lai Tianyuan's command, and the defense of Kainjing naturally fell to him, and besides, he is the Grand Chancellor, so it was natural for him to share Tu Yi's burdens. Lai Tianyuan's expression turned dark when he heard what Zhao Shu articulated. He considered that Tu Yi wanted him to take the blame.